Okay, so you sent over these RoleCatcher resources on becoming like an import-export manager in waste. And to be honest with you, it's not usually how I spend my Tuesday morning. Waste,
Yeah.
not really my thing. But gotta say, the more I dug into this stuff, the more interesting it got. It's like this whole hidden world,
Yeah.
this whole global dance of like sustainability and trade. And I don't know, it's kind of wild.
It really is.
So you're thinking about running this whole global operation, right? Making sure that waste and scrap materials are moving across borders the right way.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see what RoleCatcher thinks about whether, this is actually the right career path for you.
Right. And it's not just, knowing how to like do the job.
Yeah.
It's about managing this whole massive system. You're setting up the entire thing, making sure these materials are crossing borders smoothly. You're staying compliant. You're basically a choreographer of compliance.
Whoa.
You're navigating all these international laws, environmental regulations, customs procedures. It's a lot.
I'm already overwhelmed and I haven't even had my coffee yet.
Yeah.
So what happens if, like, things go wrong? Like, what if, say, there's a shipment of recycled plastics headed to China and all of a sudden, boom, their import policies change? What then?
You got it. That is exactly the kind of curveball you could be dealing with. Your container ship is just stuck out at sea, your suppliers are freaking out, and you gotta make a decision, like yesterday.
Oh my God.
Do you reroute the shipment? Try to renegotiate the contract? It is high pressure, believe me, and this is where those critical thinking skills really come in.
Talk about thinking on your feet. This is not your average 9 to 5, that's for sure. So, okay, what actual skills do you need to, like, survive in this kind of pressure cooker? So RoleCatcher is saying monitoring is a top skill. Can you break that down for us? Why is that so important?
Okay, so imagine, right, you are tracking this shipment of e-waste. It's going across 3 different continents, and you have to make sure that it doesn't end up in some illegal dumping ground. That is what monitoring is all about.
Wow.
You're not just tracking the shipments, you're making sure that everything is compliant every single step of the way. And while you're doing all of that, you got to keep an eye on market trends too, because the price of scrap metal or like recycled plastic can change overnight. It's all about global supply and demand.
So you're not just a logistics pro, you're like some kind of trash whisperer predicting the market.
Yeah, well, maybe not a trash whisperer, but yeah, you get the idea. That shipment to China that we were talking about, that's a great example of where your critical thinking has to kick in. You got to figure out what's happening, look at your options, and then make a big decision with very little information and not a lot of time.
High stakes. And I bet the people you're dealing with are a whole other thing. You've got suppliers and customers all over the world, and each one has their own culture, their own way of doing things.
You said it. Negotiation and persuasion are key. Let's say you are trying to close a deal with some big electronics recycler in Europe.
Okay.
You have to understand their needs, speak your language, and sometimes I mean that literally. And then you have to convince them that you are the only partner for them. Relationships and trust are super important, but so is knowing when to play hardball.
Yes. Like Shark Tank, but with a, sustainable twist. So instead of pitching a product, you're pitching a shipment of, I don't know, scrap metal.
Exactly. You need that entrepreneurial spirit, right? You need that knack for negotiation, and you absolutely need a global perspective. That's how you thrive in this industry.
This is way more exciting, and I'm not going to lie, way more challenging than I thought it was going to be. How does anyone even keep up in this field? You've got all these regulations changing all the time, a global market.
Constant learning. You can't just rely on what you know now. You have to be ready to adapt and learn new things all the time. Resources like Waste Management World, which is a really important industry magazine, or organizations like ISRI, which is the Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries, are going to be your best friend. They have info on new laws, new technologies, best practices. That's how you stay ahead of the curve.
Sounds like you're always in school, but hopefully with less homework this time. Okay, so we figured out this role takes a unique set of skills. You got to have the knowledge, and you definitely have to be able to roll with the punches. But what does the career path actually look like? Where do you even begin? And where can this job take you? Because you've got the skills, you're driven, and you're passionate about sustainability. Let's say you're a few years in, climbing that career ladder. What does that look like?
RoleCatcher lays out a pretty clear path, so you're probably starting as an entry-level import-export coordinator.
Okay.
Think of this like your apprenticeship. You're learning the basics, helping with the day-to-day stuff, getting a feel for how this whole global dance works.
God, so you've learned the steps. Now you got to find your groove. What's next?
Right, so from there, maybe you move up to an import-export specialist. Now things are getting more interesting, more responsibility, you're handling certain clients maybe, or you're figuring out the ins and outs of specific regions. You might even become fluent in like the language of a particular material stream.
No way. So you're not just moving up, you're finding your own little corner of the global waste trade.
Yeah.
Then.
You hit the big leagues, kid. You become an import-export manager. You're
Whoa!
calling the shots now, making those high-pressure decisions, moving materials across continents. You've gone from apprentice to, like, the conductor of the orchestra.
From rookie to rock star. But we talked about the competition in this industry. It's fierce. How do you actually stand out? How do you get to those top spots?
Certifications. That's your secret weapon. Things like the CITP, Certified International Trade Professional, or the CSCP, the Certified Supply Chain Professional.
Right.
These are basically your black belt in global trade. You show employers that you're not messing around, you know your stuff, you've mastered this whole complex world.
So you're always learning, you're building your skills, you're networking with all the other waste experts. Sounds like a pretty rewarding career path, if you ask me. But, I mean, let's be real. No job is perfect.
Yeah.
What are the downsides? What does someone need to know before they dive headfirst into this world?
Well, you already hit on one. The competition. It's global. Everyone wants the same scrap metal, the same recycled plastic, and the stakes are high. RoleCatcher actually says that the average import-export manager gets 5 times more applications than other similar jobs.
5 times. Seriously.
Yeah, it's a lot. You got to bring your A game just to get noticed. And then there are the market fluctuations that we talked about. Like, you could have this huge shipment of recycled paper, right? And then, bam, it's practically worthless because some new cardboard recycling plant just opened up somewhere else. That's the name of the game in this market.
You've really got to be okay with uncertainty then.
100%. And speaking of things not always going to plan, let's talk about the regulations.
Oh, boy.
They are complicated, they change all the time, and every country is different. Something that's fine in one place will get your shipment, like, detained in another.
I bet the paperwork alone is insane.
Oh, you have no idea. Every single shipment, every border, it's all paperwork. And it has to be perfect. One wrong signature, one code that's off, and you're looking at delays, fines, maybe even lawsuits. It's not enough to just know the rules. You got to be on top of every single detail.
So we've got intense competition, markets that are all over the place, and regulations that can make your head spin. And yet it feels like there's something really exciting about this career path.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who's listening right now and thinking, okay, this sounds kind of intense, but I kind of love it.
Yeah.
It's definitely like not for everyone, but if you're up for it, it could be amazing.
Yeah, totally. This isn't just about, pushing papers around. This is about tackling these huge global problems.
So like knowing everything we know now, how does someone actually decide if they've got what it takes to do this?
Honestly, start with yourself. Like, do you like puzzles? Do you get excited by a challenge? You know those situations where you got to think fast, change with the punches, and come up with solutions when things get tough?
Because this isn't just any other job. This has like worldwide impact.
Exactly. You got to navigate different cultures, learn those crazy international regulations, and deal with markets that just won't sit still. Does that sound fun or terrifying to you? And, like, how much do you love learning?
Yeah.
Because this industry, it never stops changing.
So you really are a lifelong student.
You got it. And honestly, I got to mention the passion piece too.
Right.
This job, it's about more than just moving stuff around the world. It's about like building a better future. You're finding new ways to handle the planet's waste. It can be pretty powerful to know you're making a difference.
So it's like you're part environmental superhero, part logistics master, part, I don't know, international peacekeeper or something.
Pretty much. You nailed it.
So for someone listening who's like, all right, I'm in, sign me up, what's the first step?
RoleCatcher, for sure. They've got tons of resources, career profiles, industry info. But honestly, the coolest thing is you can connect with people who are actually doing this work. Like, imagine talking to a real-life import-export manager.
Someone who's been there, dealt with it all.
Exactly. Someone who can give you the real deal. And hey, maybe someday that'll be you, right? You'll be the one giving advice to the next generation of waste and scrap superstars.
It's quite a journey. Well, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for like opening our eyes to this whole other side of, well, trash.
My pleasure. Like I said, it's got huge potential if you're willing to put in the work.
For anyone out there thinking about taking the plunge, remember, stay curious, don't be afraid of a little chaos, and keep learning. The world of waste is out there waiting for you.